My name is Lisa, and I'm an internal support coordinator with WEX FSM, and I want to welcome you all to today's session of Solution Studio. Today's session is managing your payments in WEX FSM. And let's face it, everybody's in business to get paid. So we want to make sure that we're managing our payments, we know how they work in the system, and we make the most out of our system to keep it clean. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. There we go. Okay, so this is a test environment. Some things look a little ugly in here, but we go in here to break things. So just bear with me on this. And I also have my QuickBooks open as well, so I can show you some features in QuickBooks Desktop to see where the payments land. So mainly whenever you take payments in the system, you have the option to process or record a payment. If you process a payment, they will show up on your activity screen, and you get there by going to Payment Options, Activity, Transactions. And this would be where all of your payments would show up in a batch. This is kind of ugly because we go in there and we make payments and we void them. Yours is going to be a little bit more clean. It will have like today's date for everything that's pending for today on card processing, or we have check and financing batches as well up here. So make sure that you, if you're signed up for any of those, that you are aware that you can change the activity screen up there. The date range, usually the first of the month, it defaults to the first day of the month, so that you won't be able to see payments from before the first of the month. You may have to go back in time just a little bit to see what you're looking for. And also, if you change any of these settings, make sure you hit refresh so that you can go in and get these. But the payments will show up here. These are all voided, and it'll be a batch, and it'll be a batch amount. And this batch amount, when it settles tonight at probably about 7 or 8 o'clock at night on Eastern time, it'll settle. And then that batch amount will be what will be deposited in your bank account. So when you go through and look at all of these payments that match this total amount, you're going to see that total amount hit your bank. And if you sync with QuickBooks, let me pull this up real quick here. QuickBooks. Those payments are going to sync to the undeposited funds here in QuickBooks. And the undeposited funds, you would come in here and you would click on the undeposited funds and choose those payments that you saw on the activity screen to match that batch. And then that will be deposited into your check register in QuickBooks to match what's coming in from your bank, so that when you reconcile your banking, it's the same. Okay. When you get to the point where you click on these and you go to the second screen to do the batch deposit, you will have a default checking account. And if you choose to change where that batch is going, some people put install payments in a savings account and leave service in their checking account. You can choose which check register you're going to put it into. Okay. Let me go back over to the regular screen. Okay, so the other thing that you want to look at in here is under payment options and activity. A lot of people don't know where to find their statements. So their statements are here. So if you would come into the system, go to payment options, activity, and go to statements, that's where you're going to find your statements. And this may not pull up because it's a test account, but yes, it should. Okay, see, it has no processing statements. They would show here every month at the end of the month. They will show up here. And your subscriptions statement will be here as well. So you would come in and pull this up. If you're doing check processing with us, the check processing shows on your WEX FSM statement. So just wanted to make sure that you knew where to find those. You can download them and come in and take a peek. Okay. So the other place in the system where we can manage payments is on the payment list. And as I mentioned, when you log in and you pull up the payments list, since today's April Fool's, and this is not a joke, it's real, April 1st, it's going to default to the first of the month. So you're not going to see most of your recent payments that you're managing. So you may want to go back in time just a little bit and take a look at from March. And you can manage your payments in here, kind of see as a total what's being brought in, because the ones that are in the activity screen are processed, but you may be recording payments as well. Payments that you take to the bank, payments that you may have processed in another system will be recorded in our software to offset the invoice balance to make sure that the customer balance is correct. So you can see this by seeing the type, whether it's recorded or processed, whether it's check or cash. And we're not running any payments in here, so that's why everything is recorded. It will have the status, the amount, the frequency, and that it's ready to sync. Okay. The invoice column here will tell you if this payment is assigned to an invoice or not. And as you can see, these don't have check marks. If you click the down arrow here, you'll be able to see the invoice or invoices in case the payment is split between multiple invoices here. But as you can see, there are no invoices here. And the way this shows up on the customer, if I take the red box with the arrow, it's going to open it in a new tab. And on this customer's payments tab, you're going to see a gold bar. And that means it has a payment or payments, in this case, because this is a test account, that are unapplied or partially unapplied. And to apply them, you can click on the pencil and hit reassign payment. Go find the invoice that this is for or put it against multiple ones. And if you are making a payment that has an overpayment, you would put the rest of the funds into a payment without an invoice to apply later. Okay. You also have the opportunity to delete a payment from here or refund a payment. And that's where the difference between processing a payment and recording a payment is a little bit different. If you process a payment, the only thing you can do is reassign and refund. You can't delete it. You can only delete a recorded payment, and you will see that up at the top so that when you go in and look at the payment, click on the pencil, always be aware of what it says up here, either edit recorded payment or a processed payment up here, because there are certain rules that you have to follow with processed payments that you don't have to follow with recorded payments. And editing them and deleting them are some of the things you can do with a recorded payment that you can't do with a processed payment. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to go over is actually the difference between process payment and record a payment, because if you hit record a payment, we have the options in here. Excuse me. Go down, my mouse wouldn't go down. And the payment methods are a lot of the credit cards. So these are put in here because if you process with a different processor, you want to be able to mark how you got paid in here. You could say American Express, the last four numbers, and the date received is today, but this wasn't processed in our system. So you can't process a credit card with just the last four numbers. And a lot of times techs might get confused between process and record. So we just wanted to make sure that they are well aware that when they add four numbers, you can't process. And this is a recorded payment that you are making outside of the system that you need to just point towards an invoice to satisfy that invoice. Now, process payment is when you really process. You can choose which invoice to assign it to. You can put in the card number, the expiration date, all of that information. You have the option to authorize them to share the number and to save it, okay? So you can save this number, and if you do, it will process the payment against the invoice that you just did, and under payments, it will show up here under stored accounts. And if you want to add accounts, you can add them ad hoc here as well. But when you process a payment, you have the option to store it if the customer agrees, and it will show up here to use later on. Okay. Payments and credits by invoice will show the ones, once these payments are assigned, they'll be assigned to the invoice down here, and you can always click on anything red in the system does something. So if I wanted to see all invoices with a balance, I could click on here and toggle it up and down and see the ones with a balance and bring them up, or the most recent ones. Okay. Okay. So we also have the option of doing recurring payments. We can do recurring payments for maintenance plans, and you can do reoccurring payments separate from maintenance plans. So let's say you have a customer who can't pay their entire bill and you want to set up a payment plan for them. You can do a payment plan for them by going to payment options, payments, and recurring payments. And you can create a payment plan for them. This does not auto invoice, okay? So you can create a new payment plan for him here. You can hit create new payment plan. You can choose the job number that it goes to, the name, how much they are going to have in the payment, how much they are going to pay every month, and the start and end date of those payments. Email the receipts to the customer so that they know that they're on track. But this functions independently of maintenance plans. And our maintenance plans have a recurring payment feature and an auto invoice feature. But this can be done outside the maintenance plan's very manual process because you're going to have to go to that payment list that we saw. So when this payment runs on the 15th of the month, it's not going to be assigned to that invoice, and you're going to have to click the three dots here, hit edit payment, reassign the payment, and choose that invoice and put the amount on there that they have paid every month or every quarter or however often the payment runs. But maintenance plans, recurring payments are tied to the maintenance plan. They're tied to the customer, and we have an auto invoice feature. So let me show you how that works. If you go to maintenance plans and you add a maintenance plan, and this will be the same if you have an invoice and you sign up on the invoice to sign up for a plan. Now on the invoice, you have the option to do the recurring payments as well. So if you hit plus and you choose your plan and you go through all of the next dones and get to the payment, you can choose payment plan. And the payment plan will give you the total, monthly, quarterly, annually. You can break it down. It'll tell you the number of payments, the monthly payment amount, the first and the last date. These run after midnight, so you would not be able to choose today on the calendar because they already ran this morning. So regular process payments process about 7 or 8 in the evening and they settle. Then recurring payments are after midnight so that way there's not a whole lot of traffic in the system and they can run them all very quickly at that time. So it has the same information, everything in here for the credit card to store the card. You can email the customer receipt. Some people like it to fly under the radar and just run until canceled, and they don't want this to go out. Some people want it to go out. It's a choice that you as a business can make. But the auto-generate invoices is the most important thing because when this 1779 payment runs tomorrow, if auto-generate invoices is not on, you will have to create an invoice, one invoice for the entire maintenance plan for $39.80, and then apply each of these 1779s every month to that invoice, which is a lot of extra work that you shouldn't have to do because we have this feature. You turn on the auto generate invoice. When this 1779 payment runs, we're going to auto create an invoice for that payment. It'll shake hands with the payment so that the customer balance will be zero. If you create an invoice for $39.80 and apply these, it always looks like the customer owes you money, and they don't because they have a payment plan and they're on track. So as long as they're making their monthly payment, the customer's balance should be zero. And using this auto generate invoice feature with the payment keeps the customer balance on track for what they owe you right now. Okay. Now, where do you monitor these? It was back up here in the payments and recurring payments where we created the one that was independent of a maintenance plan. These are overdue payments, and these are the existing plans and upcoming payments. So these are all the payments that are coming up. On the 6th, we have one that's running for $16.59, and it'll show all of these coming up. These aren't in red, but you can click on them and get the information if you have to update a credit card or anything, or see the upcoming payment schedule. Okay, if you need to discontinue the plan that you created independently, you can discontinue it here as well. But what you need to monitor is the overdue payments. So you set up your maintenance plan to run, and you have recurring payments and auto invoicing set up, but people's credit cards get stolen. Their expiration date is over. So you have to be able to manage these in bulk. So you can come over here and see the failure reason. It's a bad card. It may say expired. You may have to reach out to the customer to get a new card, update their card, and you can hit run tonight, or you can skip the payment, click the box to skip that payment, and take the payment directly on the customer's payments tab, and then assign it to the invoice that was created. So you have the option to do several things. You can run it tonight. Once you've updated it, you can skip it. If you take the payment another way, they may come in and give you cash for the payment that failed. And then you want to skip that payment, and then next month they will start again on the next one. But monitoring this is very important, because if you don't monitor it, can't even say it, you're not getting paid. So you're going out and you're doing those service windows for those maintenance plans, but you're not getting paid. And that's not what you're in business to do. You're in business to get paid for what you promised your customer to service them, the service that you provided. So just make sure that someone's coming in and monitoring these if you decide to use the recurring payment feature, so that you can always stay on track. Okay. Down payments. Let's talk about down payments. Let me go to Jack Dawson. So in the system, sometimes some companies will take down payments. So if you take a down payment and it is before you've created the invoice, if I came in here and hit record payment, and I'm going to take a down payment for $500, and I'm going to say it was a check, and it's check number 1234. I received it today. New install, attic. So it's going to be for a new install in an attic, and I'm going to record the payment. It's going to sit here until on my job I get around to creating that invoice. Once I create that invoice, I would click on here and I would edit it, reassign the payment to the correct invoice, and then this bar will go away. Okay, so it will sit here. Some people don't like it to sit here because they say, okay, it's not on there. And it's like, it's really, everything here is tied to invoices. If it's not tied to an invoice, it's going to be under the gold bar. Or if you assign part of this $500 to an invoice and there's still an unapplied amount, it is still going to show here on this gold bar. It will sync to QuickBooks. If I go over and update this, it is ready to sync to QuickBooks, even though it's not assigned to an invoice, and it will hit those undeposited funds, and it will be assigned to that customer in QuickBooks as an unapplied payment there as well. When you go back and you create the invoice and you reassign it, this will come back to ready, and they will both resync over to QuickBooks as a married payment and invoice. Okay, so let's say you need to refund a payment. You have the option to refund here. And remember, edit payments. If you don't want to go through the whole thing of refunding the payment, you can just delete the payment, right? If it was made in error, if you handed them the check back, you can always delete it, okay? But if it's a process payment, you have to refund it. Now, where people get into trouble a lot of times is if they have the payment that is assigned to the invoice, okay? So if they assigned it to the invoice and they are going to refund a part of it, they get into a little bit of trouble where they just try to refund it and change the amount of the invoice and then refund the overpayment. And it can get really tricky because in accounting, things should be even. Okay. So if they're not even, there's a lot of room for error. Things can go wrong. So this had an invoice of 321.75. It was paid for 321.75. We gave them a credit to reduce the amount of the invoice by $10.73, and we refunded $10.73. It's even, and the customer balance is correct. Okay. So when you go to do a refund and you're giving it because you're reducing the amount of the invoice due, not because they overpaid, you would come up here and you would hit credit and refund, credit and refund. Come here to the invoice that you want to do it. Put in here whether it's you're giving them $50 off on labor and $100 off on the system. Okay, and it's going to figure the tax and it is going to give them a credit so that you can refund that amount. If you go in and just open up the invoice and change the amount, you now have an overpaid invoice in our system, and you would have to go back and reassign the payment and remove it because it gets a little bit ugly. So just to reiterate, follow the accounting processes. So if you have an invoice that is paid and you're reducing the amount, do the credit first and then do the refund so that you make sure that your customer balance is okay. Okay, so one of the things that you may see when you're doing a payment or an invoice when you sync over, that let's say your accountant or your office manager closed the books. They balanced out January and they adjusted their checkbook so that it's balanced and they close the books because they don't want any changes in that reporting. A lot of times you will see an error where the invoice is before the close date and the payment is after, and it will say there is a close date. So you may want to check with your accountant. We're not accountants here, so you would need to check with your accountants how you want that to show in reporting. They may just show it as a payment applied to the 30, 60, 90-day balance, but you would need to check with them. If this syncs to the customer and it still has the error and you can apply it there, you can always come in here and set this to off, knowing that you've already taken that action in QuickBooks and you don't have to monitor this again. Okay. See if I missed anything. Does anybody have any questions so far? Anything that we need to go over? I think we've gone over pretty much everything except for a lot of times QuickBooks Online if you have QuickBooks Online, you may have it electronically connected to your bank as well. So your bank would bring in your deposits and your checks into your check register automatically if you have it set up that way electronically. So when you do that batch from deposit from the undeposited funds in QuickBooks, it looks different in QuickBooks Desktop. But you would be doing your batch from here. When you do this in QuickBooks Online, it's going to ask if you want to match it to that electronic entry that came in from your bank. And you would say yes, because if you deposit this and you're bringing it in electronically from your bank, you're going to have two deposits in your register for the same day for the same amount if you don't match them. And it's going to look like your income is twice of what it is. So just make sure that if you do have it coming in electronically, you have a process. QuickBooks Online is pretty easy. You can match it. QuickBooks Desktop, it's a little bit more tricky, so you may want to check with your accountant to see how they want to handle that. I believe when I did it, I used to open up do the deposited from here and then go back in and delete the one that came in from the bank. But check with your accountant and make sure that you're doing it the way they want. I just wanted to give you a heads up that if you are bringing it in electronically and you're not accounting for this, you're going to look like you're having a very, very good year, except for when you go to write the check on that amount of money, because it's not going to be there. We had one lady who was $275,000 over 1 year because she was not aware that she was bringing her stuff in from the bank as well. So just make sure to keep your books clean, be aware of that, and account for it however your accountant would like you to do that. So does anyone else have any questions or need to go into a breakout room to go over maybe any payment errors or anything like that? You can unmute yourself. There's just a few of us in here, and or put the message up in the chat. If you come into the Help Center while we're waiting and search for Solution Studio, you're going to see the whole list. It's under Advanced Working Sessions and Learning. You're going to see the whole calendar that we have coming up, any replays that we have down here at the bottom, and you can go ahead and get signed up for any upcoming courses. We have about 20 subjects that run in rotation, and we keep Fridays open for question and answers. When you sign up, there is a place to add a question so that we know what you would like to go over before the meeting starts, so we can make sure we have the correct people in play here for you. And looks like we still have no questions, so I'm going to let everybody get back to work and have a great rest of your day, everyone.